welcome to our weekly show Tea Talk, where we'll be discussing latest updates, news, what's buzzing on the social media, as well as all that you need to know to have that ease of living in this beautiful country. This week we'll be talking about the launch of the first organ donation app that has been done by the Ministry of Health, and for that matter we have a very special guest joining us today. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Naifeen Al-Kalbani, who's the head of the organ transplant department at the Royal Hospital. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us and wishing you a very happy Ramadan.
Thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure to have you and to talk about this important topic. I know that last year that Ministry of Health actually launched the Transplant Society, and just within a span of a year or a little over a year, now they have come up with the app. Could you tell us about this organ donation app, please?
So the organ donation app is actually part of the bigger app, which is a Shifa system or a Shifa app, which is mainly targeted by the Ministry of Health to be looking at the patient's records, so the patient can actually log in through the civil ID number and able to see the results of his investigations, see the results of his children, all the appointments. So through that, we're actually launching the organ donation section. From that point of view, the patient himself can log in and choose to actually donate after death, if this is his wish.
Okay, and how does this app really work? What steps does one need to follow to log in or to have an account?
We usually recommend that the patient or the person himself that would like to actually donate after the death looks into or investigates and gets more knowledge about the topic before he actually goes into the app and to agree or disagree regarding this donation. So gathering the information is very, very crucial at this point. In that segment of knowledge and the information itself, we actually launched through the Royal Hospital another educational app called 8, or the Gift of Life. That actually gives a lot of information for both the recipients and the donors about donation through lifetime or even after death. So a lot of information is provided in Arabic and in English as well. And there's a lot of animation to make it for those who don't want to read or write or read itself. They can actually look into the animation with English subtitles. So that's available as knowledge. After you get that piece of knowledge, you would need to actually discuss it with somebody from the family to make that wish kind of known to the family members. In case something happens for you after a long time, inshallah, that somebody knows that this has happened. After that, you can log in into the Shifa app and then choose organ donation. And from there, you need to put more information. So your telephone number, putting your civil ID number, your full name, and sign that you would like to donate after death. The app itself actually gives you the choice of what organs you would like to donate. So if you would like to donate everything, you can actually choose that. If you would like to donate certain things only, like the cornea, the kidneys, the liver, you can make that choice. Even though you don't want to donate and you just want to look how the process is, you can have the choice of not to donate, or you can decide later on. So that options are actually available in the app itself. After that, you actually write the name of the person in the family that you discussed that and made that wish kind of come, known, and further discussion, so that can actually be implemented later on as a will. And then you have to get 2 witnesses. So the witnesses you need to fill in more details about. So you need to get the full names, their civil numbers and the expiry dates, as well as their signatures. And after that, after the completion of that full process, you can have a PDF file, which is like a will that's actually documented with your signature in there, the 2 witnesses, and who's the person that they can contact, just to make sure that information is actually relied on. That is actually later on going to be stored in the Ministry of Health under confidential circumstances, only when it is needed, and after, for some foreseen reasons, there is brain death or death after that. Once the death has been announced, then that information can be sought or looked after.
Right.
If you wanted or you wish to be a donor, then that can be actually pursued after the whole medical process of treating you was actually there.
Yeah, I can see that the whole process is actually very well designed and planned for people who would like to donate after their death. Doctor, you have been using the word like people who would like to donate after their death. Is there also something that you can donate during your lifetime?
Yes. So mainly our program right now in Oman is actually made or founded on the donation during living time. So from relatives as 99% of the time. Just because of the matching of the organs and the tissues, that would be easier with the relative donations up to the 4th degree. So with that kind of institution, but also we're going to be opening hopefully soon donation from non-relatives as well. So that would be an option as well. And with that it is easier, and there's also information from the other application, which is 8 or Gift of Life, that you can look at what is the process itself, that you can take consent. We will talk to you from a medical team, tell you what is the advantages, disadvantages, if there's any complications or not, and tell you about the recipient and who's going to be receiving that organ or the Gift of Life itself.
Right, right. Now, doctor, you actually mentioned about the complications as well. And right now we're still coming out of the COVID period. So what kind of challenges would that would have on people who would like to donate organs, or actually even on the receiver who would be willing to receive the organs?
Well, COVID actually changed our lives, and it changed our health system and put a lot of pressure on the healthcare team. So again, we went through a lot of challenges during the COVID pandemic itself. So one of the major challenges that we were facing was, number one, the healthcare staff was actually being shifted from one area to another to cover the emergencies that we were having. The availability of critical beds and surgical units were actually less because the doctors were being shifted elsewhere where there was an emergency and a pandemic kind of situation. Looking more closer to the two components, which is the recipient and the donor themselves. So the donors, number one, have to be checked, do they have COVID? Because when you transmit the organ from one person to another, you might be transmitting the infection with that. So we need to take, going back to the basics of history taking, making sure there was no symptoms, examining the patient or the donor very thoroughly, and as well doing investigations. If there's any question mark, we may take tissue samples or biopsies to make sure that there is no corona or COVID actually being transmitted. And we also check other viruses, not just the COVID. We check for hepatitis and other infections as well, because the organ transmission itself can also take with it infections or even malignancies. So we actually check very thoroughly for these things.
So there is a proper screening before you decide that this organ or tissue would be transplanted to the receiver?
Yes, we do. Now, and we actually do repeat the COVID testing before the transplantation surgery itself by within 48 hours. So within 2 days, we get a more recent testing. For the recipient as well, or the person who's going to be receiving this gift of life, again, we're going to be parting of the international protocols is that we give them immunosuppressant, which puts their immunity very, very low to actually not reject this gift from the other person or the organ itself. So if you do that and the patient gets a risk of infection, again, we have to balance between those and make sure that the patient or the recipient is not having COVID, as well as the donor, as well as the healthcare team. So even both will actually be in isolation rooms so that the healthcare team who might be symptomatic is not actually going in and transmitting that infection.
So there is no such thing that if one is infected with COVID and has recovered, let's say in a period of 6 months or 8 months, and it's completely fine, that person can still be an ideal donor for the recipient, right?
Yes, yes, if we look into the other things as well. So that should not be a contraindication for actually donation, no. We look into other things. So when we look at the infections, we look at there is no malignancies, we also look, is there a match for somebody to receive it, from a blood grouping, from tissue typing, from the size itself, from the connections and the vessels. So that also we look at all of that at the same time.
And the same process goes for the recipient as well, doctor?
Yes. So again, we make sure he's healthy, as healthy as possible. We know that there's a condition and that the organ has failed, especially like renal failure or liver disease. We want to make sure that we are able to perform the surgery and that the patient himself can tolerate such a surgery. So the patient undergoes a lot of investigations, cardiac or looking at from the doctor's cardiology, so that to see the heart is okay, will it tolerate a lot of fluids, will it tolerate the anesthesia. That's also essential information for us.
So this is a very crucial, like you think when people say it's just an organ or tissue transplant, so people have this concept that you just go to the hospital, you register yourself, and the process is taken care of. But talking to you, it's a lot of steps.
It's an orchestra. It's a medical orchestra. Everybody has a group or a mission to do, and everybody has that mission to do in sequence, and we look at all of that collectively. So we also have a medical committee within the hospital itself that looks at and gives the final green light. Do we go ahead with the transplantation? As we get all the knowledge, collective knowledge about the donor, we put all the collective knowledge about the patient, we match them together to see how successful is this transplantation going to be, and we're not going to proceed unless it is quite successful and the benefits is going to be outweighing all the complications or possible complications,
right,
because we don't know or foresee the future.
Absolutely. Now, doctor, when you're talking about the organ transplant, are there any specific organs that we are targeting at this point of time? Is there any specific need of certain organs that you are seeing, being an expert in this field?
We always have the need of all the organs. So when we talked initially, we talked about the organs that might be or can be actually transplanted worldwide. We talked about the heart, the lungs, we talked about the pancreas, small bowel, the kidneys and the liver. Again, there's a transplantation of the cornea, which is a tissue itself. So there is always need for that, but you always have to say, do you have the medical staff and do you have the surgical expertise to perform and to follow up such patients? So far in the Sultanate, we do have the medical expertise for both the kidney and for the liver teams that actually we're developing very quickly, alhamdulillah. And with that, we're actually pursuing them very, very confidently and in forward steps.
Yes.
So.
Doctor, is there any minimum or maximum age for a donor to actually, think about donating his or her organ, and same goes for the receiver? Is there any minimum or maximum age?
We don't keep an age. For donation, there is no age limit. If the patient or if the donor is actually above the age of 18 years, they can actually have this will from before saying consenting for that. If not, then we may actually discuss it with the family that they may give the consent for the donation. If the donor is actually below the age of 18, we can take the consent from any legal guardian. So the parents would be the possibility. So children can be donors after death in case of there's a suitable recipient as well.
Right. And doctor, I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, you would know better. You're the expert in this field. People are still a bit hesitant, a bit reluctant, when it comes to organ donation. Can you tell us the importance it carries, like being a donor to save someone's life?
It was a topic that most of the people did not discuss. So again, opening the topics and creating the organ donation culture is a very, very important thing. So again, discussing it, putting it back and forth into the media, allowing people to see how it does. And we're actually showing the outcome that actually it changes lives. We're not changing lives of the patients alone. We're changing the lives of the relatives as well. So this is an important thing. We do have organs such as the kidney where when it actually reaches the various stages, and the last stage, which is stage 5 of the chronic kidney disease, it's when the body needs more help more than the medication, where we have to offer another form of renal replacement for us. And that form of renal replacement has always been either a dialysis form or a transplantation. When we look at the benefits and the disadvantages of each, there is a much better quality of life, less medications, not going back again to a normal life with transplantation compared to dialysis, because we have never been able to create what God has created. We'll never be able to do so, and there's no alterations for that. When we look at the technology and the advancement, we looked at the artificial hearts, we looked at the animal organs being transplanted to humans. It has not been replaced and is still in clinical trials.
Right.
When we look in that form, at least when you go on organ or kidney failure, you do have the bridge of the dialysis until you find a donor or until we activate the other system of the brain death donors. In that case, but then we have organs that are patients with organ failure that no alternative is there. When we talk about heart failures, when we talk about lung failure, when we talk about pancreas, when we talk about liver failure, when we actually scramble and unfortunately we see patients pass away, both adults and more excruciating children. When you see the family suffering with the patient, we're literally saying take 20 medications a day and still you feel quite unhappy and tired and fatigued because the accumulation of toxins in the body, because the heart is not pumping well, because the child requires or the adult requires oxygen to bypass that. but you cannot bypass, and technology has not given us a good advancement except for organ transplantation. And organs has to come from humans. We don't have another alternative. So, and we actually cry for our patients when we have children, 2 or 3 of them in the same family, and they're running out of donors. So this is when organ donation after death will open the door to help save lives in that instance.
Absolutely, doctor. I mean, this is such an important topic to discuss and to talk out loud. Like you said, that people are still not really talking or discussing it. So thank you to you and the Ministry of Health, for coming up with this kind of drive. I remember last year I spoke to Dr. Ahmed, and he was very excited, and he was really looking forward to something that is being launched in the Sultanate. And now today we are talking about the app itself. So it's a huge milestone, that is being achieved by all the healthcare workers, looking at the need of how important this organ transplant and even tissue transplant is at the moment. Doctor, you are mentioning about the unfortunate deaths of adults and children as well. Now, during your time period, have you been seeing an increase in the mortality rate because of not finding the right match?
We definitely have noticed that we lost a lot of patients. We did, especially in adults as well as the children section. So COVID caused us to have a lot of issues because we could not proceed or use or utilize the transplantation as much as possible. Alhamdulillah, we are starting back again. We're launching very strongly. We're going ahead with kidney and liver transplantations. And with the launch of this, we're looking into having brain death donors so that we can actually save more lives. And more now, our healthcare system is now shifted from the pandemic to start to sort out real issues. And again, these patients were actually immunosuppressed. They were regularly going back for dialysis, or they were actually losing because they could not transplant and the donors were unavailable. So again, opening that door and focusing back again into this and using the technology now. So the apps are there so that you don't have to come out of your work or come out of the home. It's all at your fingertips. So you can do that. If you want the knowledge, there's an app for knowledge. So you can, and they're actually the app for 8 or the gift of life. Once you look at all these videos at your own pace and your own time and check out and look at the information, there's actually a link to go back again if you want to donate. And you can always change your mind if you want to do so.
So this is a great idea for someone who's not even, considering just to have that knowledge. And once you have made up your mind, you can actually go back to the donation page and you can register yourself.
We always keep an open door. So this is a policy for transplantation, an open door to allow to give, And again, we are a community of humanity. We're a community that likes to reach for for others and help each other out. This is our Omani community. So this is just going to be another step extending into that, same direction.
Right. Now, last question for you, doctor. Any piece of advice for those who are wishing or who are planning to donate organs?
So I would say, please discuss it with somebody, a family member. Please write, make that wish written, so that actually makes it easier for the documentation and for the communication later on. So that will make it much easier for the process afterwards. And again, you'll be saving life. So saving somebody else is actually not just saving the life. You're saving a family and saving a community. You're giving them a chance to actually live a normal life.
Absolutely. I really hope that people actually take organ donation into consideration, and it's such a beautiful thing to talk openly about, and a lot of people think that once you leave this world, your organs or your body has no importance. But talking to you, especially that you said that after that you can donate all your organs,
you can actually give a legacy and give that life to somebody else. So you continue to have a legacy. That patient who actually receives that organ will be thankful to God and to that donor. Because, and not just the patient, the family, the people, we are actually grateful for every donor that actually comes and signs up for that process, because we see life changes. And we see that sometimes you get life out of the process of death, and something therapeutic is out of it. Something is actually relieving and can help with the grieving system itself. I wanted to mention one piece of advice. one donor can actually save up to 8 lives by donating their organs.
Very well said, doctor. Nothing could have put your words, in a perfect place than this. And on that note, I would like to thank you for joining us today and taking us through this whole journey and how you can be a donor, how you can actually help change lives, how you can matter to someone's, helping their life to get better. And I hope that people will actually look into it, will go through the knowledge process if they haven't really made up their mind, and they will inshallah register. And I hope this awareness and the work that you all are doing continues until the very end. Thank you so much, doctor, once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
For more interesting videos and updates, stay tuned and keep watching TTV.